March 27th, 2025 meeting of the Fitchburg Historical Commission meeting. I'd now like to call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. We ask anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and state your name and city of residence. At this time, I ask all electronic devices to be placed in silent mode. And at this time, I'd like to call a roll call. Ellen DiGeronimo.
Present.
Don Ostrowski.
Present.
Charles Chernomello.
Close. Present.
Very present. Andy Lepassier.
Present.
Mary Self.
Present.
And I see we have a full membership here and a prospective member, Brian Gallagher, who is in the audience and hopefully will be joining us next month. Welcome, Brian. At this time, I'd like to invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and address, and identify the agenda item on which you would like to speak, and then you may speak on it for no more than 2 minutes. Seeing no one present, and we received no public comments, let's move on to our second item on our agenda. Review and approve minutes for the February 28th, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for the February 28th, 2025 meeting.
And a
I
second.
second the motion to approve the minutes.
Has anyone ever not approved them?
We've made adjustments.
I make a note there. It's the February 27th. I just wanted to
Thank you.
put that correction.
Correction.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly 4 months ago, or four weeks ago.
Where
February 27th.
February and March have the same
Okay.
dates.
So approving as amended by Andy. Please, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Abstain? None. Unanimously approved. Item number 3, projects and goals for 2025. At the beginning of the calendar year here, we are kind of reviewing what we've done in the past as a commission and what might be our goals for this coming year. And we floated a few ideas in the past couple meetings. And I think some of the ideas are talking about certainly public education, about preservation and preserving the heritage of Fitchburg. And we talked perhaps about having maybe tours of downtown and other historic areas, or bringing those back again. I know those have been done in the past quite successfully, and certainly led by the Historical Society. That might be something we'd consider. One thing that I've thought might be good, and last year, we celebrated May, which is Preservation Month, by having a public forum where we introduced a lot of the heritage of Fitchburg, actually held in this chamber. And we had a lot of guests, and we had FATV coverage on it. And we've actually posted that synopsis or recording of that meeting, which you can find on FATVs, I think listed under the Historical Commission events, which I think is still valuable today. And for this year's Preservation Month, I'm thinking it might be, if we have time and if for the Commission's review, come up with a kind of an outline where we might do a presentation to City Council during one of our meetings, doing a brief, perhaps PowerPoint presentation, somewhere around 10 minutes, so we're not taking a lot of their time, but doing a kind of a brief presentation introducing again to the City Council and the citizens at large, actually, or all citizens in the community, kind of the importance of Fitchburg's heritage and what preservation means to our community. And I thought during this presentation, I've handed out kind of a brief outline, but doing a quick background history of the city, noting the importance of the river and our hilly terrain, perhaps some quick slides of early settlements and maps of the growth and a lot of wonderful panorama views of Fitchburg during its evolution, particularly during the industrial periods. Also talk about the kind of the geography of the city and how the stone walls kind of are so important to New England and particularly our city here, post-colonial stone walls, and also the stone construction from the Rollstone Quarry and images of the various structures that are still around that represent kind of Fitchburg's unique geography and unique build-out over the years. Not every city has its own quarry. Not every city, particularly in eastern Massachusetts, has the steep, hilly terrain that Fitchburg has. It makes it a very special place to live. Also, images of older sites throughout the community, perhaps even images from all the different wards, and not just the downtown, but taking into account, a lot of our wonderful rural historic sites that we have, and urban historic sites, and the thousands of great old buildings that Fitchburg has. Then following up with importance in recognizing and preserving our heritage, its importance to our community identity and pride, how it stimulates commerce, how it stimulates real estate values, property values, etc. Lastly, letting the councilors know and citizen Fitchburg know the resources that are available, such as our wonderful historical society here on Main Street, the existing inventories of our historic properties through the state's inventory system, noting historic districts that are already established in Fitchburg, and we have our historic districts brochure that we have. I've left a few copies out at the front of the chamber. City Hall has a lot of these copies. It has, and making sure each of the councilors have copies of this with maps of downtown and the historic areas we have. Maintaining our older buildings with information on how preferred ways of restoring our older buildings through kind of tried and true ways. And lastly, anyone that's interested, what are the contacts if somebody would like to find out more information about historic preservation of their own properties or the Fitchburg in general. So that's a thought that we might consider, and I'm kind of springing this on the commission kind of last minute, but we have the month of April and part of May to kind of put this together, perhaps get on the agenda, or some other venue that you might be thinking of. So this is something, again, for recognizing May as Preservation Month, and doing a brief focus to City Council might be a timely thing to do and maybe appropriate piece. Again, making sure they have time on their agenda for something like this, planning ahead, speaking with the council president and mayor, et cetera. Any thoughts or any other thoughts on maybe Preservation Month while we're on that topic?
Well, I think your recommendations are wonderful. And
Would you say, Ellen?
I said I think that the recommendations are wonderful. And, you know, we have to plan how we would, you know, have pictures taken and things to show. I made a note about the retaining wall behind B.F. Brown, which is just stunning.
Yes. Some of our built stone structures here in the city are, particularly from our own rollstone quarry, that help us have places like High Street.
Yes.
And, you know, so many other building sites and retaining walls and bridges and embankments that very unique to our city and this part of, I would say, all of eastern Massachusetts, that makes our city very recognizable.
And the view from the quarry of downtown is really
Yes.
stunning.
And, you know, the rock walk that so many people have done already,
That's right.
kind of recognizing this history. And, you know, if any other thoughts on this as maybe a project we should do, or?
Well, you mentioned the rock walk, and I think that's something we need to emphasize, because it's not just a rock walk, but Peter Capadogli really provides a lot of information about the history of Fitchburg, and one gets, I think, a new appreciation, insights into that history, and the relationship of the quarry in the early 20th century, especially, to Fitchburg economic development, because that was a driver. There, you know, every day trains would go out loaded with Fitchburg quarry granite, and went all over the world.
It's very exciting.
It is.
Any other thoughts or comments? Go, no go? Think it's something to work on?
I move that we endorse this as a project, and you give us all some assignments.
What I would like to do is if we could have maybe a committee of 2 or 3 that could kind of focus on this as a goal to kind of put it together. And I'm, you know, as kind of chair, I'll probably be on the committee anyway, but I'm wondering if there's others who would like to.
I would be delighted.
Okay, Ellen? Any other volunteers for the committee? Brian? Okay, very good. Brian, you'll be official next month, I'm sure, and super. That'd be great to have your input on that, so super. Okay. So a committee of Brian Gallagher, as he comes a member, Ellen DiGeronimo, and myself, we kind of work on this And obviously, everybody else will review what we're coming up with and seek your input and endorsements too, so, great. Any other thoughts for goals for this year as we're going forward? We have our ongoing topics that we've had year to year, but if there's any other thoughts, feel free to share them with the rest of the commission. Okay, moving on to item number 4, preservation of historic stone walls and stone structures. Don, any updates on that or status quo?
Well, we had that meeting with Felix and Liz. I don't know. It was mainly about the demolition delay, so maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but I think the stone wall was part of that. And we will continue. We'll have a meeting scheduled in April.
Yeah. Don is referring that Don and I met with the acting building commissioner and Liz Murphy from community development, kind of discussing and looking for their input on a possible demolition delay ordinance for the city, or the importance of kind of being able to preserve buildings, particularly when they might be coming up for demolition, and having a way of seeing if there's alternatives to demolition where they might be possible. Not taking away the right to have demolition, but just a period of looking at alternatives before we might lose an important piece of Fitchburg heritage. Kind of the same idea for the stone structures that we just talked about in the city. Ways of, one, educating the public about kind of their importance of how they make Fitchburg what it is, and ways of educating and ways of perhaps finding alternatives to not tearing down or destroying these pieces of our heritage. So we're going to be meeting again in about 3 weeks, I believe, and the same group, and looking at ways that we can kind of find common ways forward with this. So some good positive move on that for both the stone walls and the item number 8 on our agenda, which is historic building demolition delay. So I think maybe we've covered those both. So, okay. Yeah, I think good work, Don, and I think we're making some progress on that.
Question there, did the building commissioner have some input on demo delay? I don't know if we want to talk about that part now. Just curious.
He had some insight. Felix Zemmel has a lot of background in planning and work with a lot of other cities, currently working with other cities in the Commonwealth, some of them with more advanced historic preservation than what Fitchburg has. And he had some interesting insights from his viewpoints of certainly aware of demolition delay ordinances in other communities. And, some of the pros and cons of how they work and how they work. He somewhat noted that, or he did make a note, I think, at the beginning, was that, one of the critical issues throughout the Commonwealth and here in Fitchburg also is the lack of housing and affordable housing. Fitchburg has a large stock of older buildings, a lot of them not perhaps used as efficiently as they could be used, some of them built in times before the automobile and the importance of creating new residential living units and being able to provide parking for our multiple vehicles that we all tend to have as we housing piece. So I think there's a lot of education on both parts. We're trying to understand the issues that the city has, and certainly we are, trying to make known of the importance of we're able to take a look at demolition before it happens. Certainly not saving every building in Fitchburg, but having an opportunity for when a total demolition happens, and there's not that many during each year, getting a demolition permit for a total piece. It's in the single digits, it seems, every year. So it's a manageable piece, but being able to create, if something like this goes forward, to create the staffing and the infrastructure to be able to act on these quickly and in a productive manner, to allow permitting, et cetera, happening at the pace that development would like it to happen. So.
Yeah, one of the points you brought up was something, it was a think tank out of Boston, Pioneer or something, that said, oh, demolition delay, that delays conversion of buildings to affordable housing. And I said, well, that doesn't quite make sense. A demolition is one thing, converting buildings is another thing. So I asked him to send that to me, that report or whatever it is, because I looked on the internet to see if I could find this group, but I couldn't. But I did come across developers complaining that some people are weaponizing the demolition delay ordinance to prevent them from developing. And again, the way our demolition delay ordinance is worded, it can't be weaponized, So, and I think it's important for people to read our demolition delay with an open mind and fairly, and and not approach it with, well, I don't know what it says, but I know I'm against it type of attitude. Yes. No, it's carefully worded so that none of these things can happen.
Yeah. And again, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we should make a formal request that if anyone applies for demolition delay, that our committee would be notified.
Yep, that's kind of built into it, that ordinances like this are triggered by somebody applying for a demolition permit and looking at how an ordinance might be written, what are the criteria of buildings that would be flagged for the delay, either by age or listing on an inventory or whatever the criteria a proposed ordinance would have that would be triggering it. And those are important pieces so that certainly not all buildings being demolished would fall under it.
No.
And the point is to, make it a positive experience and be expedited quickly for what's being done.
And in some cases, to put on the public record why a building is being demolished, because as someone who has tried to find out why certain buildings were demolished in Fitchburg, one gets different answers from different people. And it would be nice to have a process and a public record of why that particular building was.
And that's why we're reaching out to other departments in the city because they have certainly their procedures and reasons for perhaps targeting some buildings like this and being able to understand the process. And, certainly for life safety issues or other planning issues, some of them are involved with grant monies that are through the community block grant process. And these are kind of timely, time-sensitive types of things that happen, and how would a proposed ordinance kind of work with those particular issues? So one part of, like the Historical Commission, is in sync with what community development or what the building commissioner is doing to condemn a building or whatever, so that we're all kind of on the same page, that we're working together on understanding timelines, understanding funding pieces. And again, it's quite often, 6 or 8 buildings a year. So it's something, I think, by reaching out to the various departments, we can perhaps come up with, something that works for everybody.
And what also needs to be emphasized is this is part of the economic development of Fitchburg, because every one of the master plans that's been written studies about what should be done for economic revival of Fitchburg. Every one of them has use your historical assets. And because once an asset is gone, it's gone, and then you can't use it. And that's a loss to economic development.
So would we want to get involved with an ordinance? Is there a specific ordinance or something?
Yeah,
No?
I think Don has a couple drafts that we've been massaging that.
Oh, good.
And that's what we shared with the building commissioner and community development. So they've seen it. We had a very good discussion about it, and we're going to be meeting again in about 3 weeks to kind of seeing how we can kind of work together on this and find ways of one, however it is, just to see that there's consideration on by the city and by the public, really, public education also, that understanding the value of our older buildings that Fitchburg has and how they, particularly when we reuse them and restore them, they can add value and certainly reinforce that pride and sense of place that Fitchburg has. And I think we all, we might think down on Fitchburg, but I think we all have this recognition of what a great and unique community this is. So that's kind of why the Historical Commission is here and why we were created. And we'll continue to, toot the horn of, Fitchburg's heritage. And all right, anything else on stone walls or demolition delay? All right. Let's move on to update proposed street and pedestrian layouts of Moran Square and Historic District draft information signage. This goes back several months when the city has hired a design consultant, again, for upgrading the design along Main Street, including the traffic and pedestrian sidewalk areas, et cetera. And currently, the design work is being prepared on the area of Main Street, Lunenburg Street, and Summer Street that centers around Moran Square. And this was a few months ago. We were able to review the design with the consultant, the engineering consultant. There are some recommended changes being made to that, and from input from various departments of the city and some from our historical commission and others about, in particular, the Spanish-American War Monument, the bronze sculpture of the hiker up on top of its granite podium or base. Just a quick update, and most of Fitchburg knows that the hiker statue was blown off of its granite base a few weeks ago in one of our local high winds, and the city, with the Parks Department and DPW, acted very quickly in retrieving a monument. Luckily, it seemed to fall to its back left a little bit onto somewhat frozen sod, but not onto hard concrete, et cetera. I believe that the monument is mostly intact, maybe a couple scratches on it. As you recall, the hiker is a very prized sculpture by the sculptor, turn-of-the-century sculptor, who designed this, and it's one of our prized sculptures in the city, and Parks and DPW were able to salvage it and put it in safe keeping at DPW. It appears that the pinning that held the bronze monument to the granite base had deteriorated. It has been there for just about 100 years now, so there has been some corrosion that happened that made it topple over with this small breeze that we had the other week. DPW is looking at ways that they can hopefully repair this. We're getting input. We were able to get the art museum involved in kind of help to recommend ways of evaluating the condition of this mounting and perhaps the repair of this, which our DPW thinks they might be able to do with some helpful volunteer work of citizens that are hoping to help get this back in place. So we're hoping to do it in the correct way, that we're making sure that this is going to last for more than 100 years this next time, and everything is working well. We applaud what DPW and the rest of the city agencies are doing to try to make this happen and get the statue back up.
Excuse me, Keith, are they planning to find a new location within the redesign of Moran Square?
Okay, so getting back to the redesign of Moran Square, the first proposal in the beginning design phase, which was at its 25% design phase from the designers or the engineer designers for the reconfiguration of the traffic and sidewalks, that the monument is being proposed to be moved in this design, probably in a location in a widened sidewalked area in front of the Moran block, which is the granite black bay windowed building right on the corner between Summer and Lunenburg Street, making kind of a plaza there where the statue would be located, getting it out of the middle island, allowing kind of safer traffic movement through, including large semi-trailer trucks being able to make the turn at proper radiuses, and also trying to keep the lengths of crosswalks smaller than they are now. It's quite an oasis to cross at the moment, and it's not that pedestrian friendly, and it can be bit of a speedway, perhaps, of coming into or out of the city. So I think there's a lot of good practices being put into the new design. We are waiting for the next phase design to kind of show this input from the first phase that we and various departments of the city have made to the designers. In the meantime, there's no funding for this project yet for the actual construction, so it's a few years off before it's going to happen. And I think the desire of the city is to have the statue back up in its current position until we actually get our funding going forward. One other piece of that design, and just to kind of recap what we talked about before, is that this intersection and kind of both directions from it includes or is kind of in the center of what is the Moran Square National Register Historic District. This district was formed in, I believe, 2018, and includes partway down Main Street to include from Moran Square down Main Street to include actually the Simon's Hall, which is the kind of last remaining buildings of Simon's Saw up off of North Street. Several other buildings in that general area there, including the Willow Street Apartments that was originally a very famous boiler manufacturing facility in Fitchburg, along with adjoining buildings there. It includes the Moran Square Diner, includes the Moran Block that we just spoke of, a couple buildings to the north of there going up Lunenburg Street and up Summer Street for a couple blocks and some of the buildings on either side of that. And then on the other side of Main Street, it includes the current Fitchburg Plumbing and Supply Building, obviously antique building there. Includes the new apartment complex that includes the old fire station on Summer Street and the old Harper Furniture, Tarbox Furniture, Syndicate Building. It was the Brown Bag Manufacturing Building in its older day. And some sites going back Sawyer Passway that goes down along the railroad, kind of going south. So this is a National Register Historic District. There's essentially no limitation or no restrictions on those buildings. It is a national recognition of the industrial age era that created this part of Fitchburg. There are tax credit incentives for people looking at certain types of development in those areas, so long as they have historic preservation involved, but as long as there are not any state or public funding involved with it, the buildings are building owners or any older existing or new owners have no restriction on them except for this recognition of their past history. So this re-improvement will be a nice addition to that. The designers are also noting in their early designs that the historic district will be noted by some signage on some of the light poles planned for this new traffic and sidewalk construction, and that there will be we're working on creating a permanent information plaque, if you will, that would probably be located near the hiker statue in its new location, that would be a description of the National Register Historic District there and kind of highlighting several of the buildings and as public information of the history of this particular area. So hopefully this will go through. We look forward to seeing the updated designs and moving forward.
And just as a footnote to
Yep.
the hiker, it was designed by Theodora Kitson, who was from Boston, Brookline area. But she went by Theo, and I think at a time when there were very few
Female sculptors being recognized.
she used that neutral term.
Yep. And we are, it's one of our wonderful public statues that the city has. We look at Monument Park with the great bronze statues commemorating those served from Fitchburg in the Civil War. As we go in the Upper Common, we have several other great monuments and sculptures in the public land that Fitchburg has in our Upper Common also. Well recognized and wonderful pieces of public art in our city.
And Nick had recommended a professional sculptor conservator be consulted.
Correct. For the repair work on the hiker, yes. So having a preservation conservator have a look at the condition of the bronze and the connections and so forth is, and I believe the city's in the process of seeing if they can bring a conservator on board to take a look at it. So I think that's in process in the moment, so we hopefully have an update on that in the future.
I had a question. Remember you had asked me to take a picture? There's that small monument next to it.
Yes.
It's like a small granite thing with writing on it, and I can't. You had me take a picture of it. Did you ever talk to the planners about including that?
Yes, we have. In Moran Square, in the island which the Civil War, Spanish-American War monument is on, there is a sub-monument that's at the going up Lunenburg, on it's kind of a teardropped island shape. At the far end of it is a small granite stone, if you will, with a bronze tablet on it that lists all of the soldiers and people in the military that served in the military during the Spanish-American War, which started in
1898.
1898 and went on to...
It was just a few months.
Yeah. For that, and it includes troops in the Philippines, and it wasn't just Spanish territories that the U.S. was in conflict with. So this other stone that Charles has mentioned, plaque represents the people that were in both the Spanish-American War and served in the World War, not known as World War I at the time, or the Great War.
Great War.
The Great War. So that's the way it's titled. So there are probably, I'm guessing, about 20 names on that particular plaque that kind of hit. There's a World War I monument in the Upper Common, and this other stone that Charles mentioned, or this other plaque, we feel should stay with the Spanish-American War monument as it is now. So if the hiker is moved over to this new spot, we've asked the consultants to make sure this other stone is moved with it too. So hopefully that will happen, and we will have a chance to review that when it comes up in the next design. So they should stay together as kind of independent pieces, certainly recognizing those in Fitchburg that have served their countries.
One of them was my very close high school friend's grandfather.
Yeah.
And so at one time during our high school years, we walked down to read his name. His first name was Napoleon, and I don't remember the second name. It wasn't Nancy's last name, but it was her grandfather. It was pretty
Right,
exciting.
yeah, so obviously still many people in here are certainly names of the community. One of our representing the citizens who served. Yes,
Is it okay to go back to an earlier
sure.
thing?
Yeah, which one?
On the projects and goals for 2025, May Preservation Month. We got an email from Jacqueline Wedgie, who's listening to us, and she requested that we do a walk of the buildings on our brochure, which I thought was actually a good idea.
Helen's brochure, or ours.
Yeah, like a walk of maybe downtown and going by each of the buildings that are on there. I thought it was a good suggestion, so I just wanted to bring it up before I forgot about it.
Good, well,
I think, as a matter of fact, for Bill McSheehy, when he was a teacher at Walnut Street School, he called me when I was working at the bank and asked me if I would tour the class, his class students. And so I think I gave the program, the walking program, to the Historical Society after I did it. And so I'll check with Susan and see if they have a copy. If not, it wouldn't be.
I think it would be a good idea.
I do too.
yeah,
We can walk around Academy Street and Main Street,
Yeah.
and some of the side roads back here.
Yeah.
Crocker Field, all these,
Sure.
it's a nice walk.
yeah, and it is I was trying to bring up a quick look at this just for public knowledge, but
We could use Helen's brochure too.
yeah. It is a long walk from the end of Moran Square Historic District to the end of like Academy Street and the Upper Common area.
And it goes all the way to School Street.
Yes, and, we'd kind of talked about this before, maybe having it in a couple different walks, although it can be done in one walk, too.
What a wimp you are. You can't walk from Moran Square to Academy Street.
I know I talk a lot, and maybe a guide like me would talk a lot, and you would take about 6 hours to do the whole tour, but
No,
good point, though, good point, though.
I don't know. You're right.
I-
I got to think about older people that might maybe have walking issues.
Thank you for your consideration. I mean, you're older than your father, by the way, so.
Oh, wow. Unless we could get a bus.
Rent a Mark bus.
The last time there was an interest in doing walking tours, we did have a bus.
Yeah, we need a bubble top bus so we can look up, like the tourists in where the double deckers without the roof on it. Maybe we can get one of those
Yeah,
buses.
a duck boat.
Or if we could just get one of those limos with all the seats in it and take the top off of it, that would be good too. So just like
Or a flatbed with seats.
Yeah, could do that.
here we go. A hay wagon, tractor. Yeah, that's about our pace too.
When Joy Contois years ago, I had an SUV, and about 5 of us went in. Joy Contois told us where to go, and she did a tour all around Fitchburg and all the places that are like on the edge of Fitchburg that border other towns that you never go to. They're just in the middle of nowhere, and there's markers and plaques and old buildings, and
Sure.
when they had forts and stuff back in the late 1700s and garrets, and she would take us around and talk to us about 8 hours it took, and we never stopped to go to the bathroom because we were all so fascinated with Joy,
Yeah.
how she was.
I surely do.
But maybe we can get the Historical Society involved, like
Yeah,
Susan,
absolutely. Yeah.
and she could lecture and talk about some things. Maybe even Pete Capadalgett Pete Cavadagli. He likes that sort of thing. Anyway,
one moment. Just for information, and for those that might be watching on, I think I'm sharing screen now, and you can see it now. This is the brochure that Charles was talking about and referenced in the email message that we just got. The brochure includes this map, and I think this is what was referenced, where this is historic areas of downtown Fitchburg in the brochure that we had for last year's May Preservation Month, and kind of shows particularly along Main Street and our downtown areas. It includes Moran Square. Coming up, these shield numbers are many of the along Main Street buildings that were designed by Fitchburg's famous architectural firm, H.M. Francis and H.M. Francis and Sons. It includes a Rollstone Church, up on Day Street, I can't remember the denomination of the church, number 21, the first Universalist church back in 1887, wonderful buildings, architecture. And on up Main Street, including Monument Park, the local historic district, the dashed lines, and Monument Park, the National Register Historic District, and the solid lines. The Upper Common proposed National Register Historic District. This is being reviewed by Mass Historical and eventually the National Park Service to include as a National Register District. Many, many buildings in there. Off to the left of the Upper Common, or just south of the Upper Common, is Crocker Field, National Register design, wonderful athletic fields designed by the Olmsted landscape firm, the same firm that designed Central Park in New York City, many parks in Boston, the Fenway area, et cetera.
the Emerald Necklace.
Emerald Necklace. And to the upper portion here, the Academy Street Educational District, that's just about received its final approval as being a National Register Historic District. This includes the B.F. Brown, old B.F. Brown School, the stable building behind it. It includes the High Street retaining wall, which is 40 or 50 feet high, maybe not quite that high, but it's one of the taller dry-laid, locally quarried stone retaining walls along High Street. And it does include the Academy, the old school building, the Second Empire, mansard roofed building that we all love, and it particularly a great restoration. It includes the Longeau School in that district, and it also includes, which is represented by number 13 here, the Wallace Way, which is the granite staircase that comes down from Pritchard Street down to Wallace Avenue that goes down and ends up at the public library, which was a Wallace donation in its original.
For those of you who are younger, at the various stages on either side of the walkway up to high school were the most beautiful wrought iron lanterns. I mean, they were, electrified. And down the center was if my memory is correct, a bronze,
Handrail.
handrail.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous.
I've seen photos of it.
Yeah. There used to be a piece of it behind a house near there I don't know if it's still there.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yep,
it
this
was
was-
beautiful.
This was a gift by
Rodney Wallace.
the Wallace family, and I can't remember which one.
Rodney.
Rodney Wallace, back in 1903, 1906, to the city of Fitchburg as a gift to the city, along with the earlier gift of the library to the city several years before that. And then his grandson gifted the new
Civic Center.
Civic Center and gifted the new library building
That's right.
that was done in the 1960s.
That was George.
George. So many generations of Wallace's involved in this one particular piece along here. Obviously, Monument Park is a treasure of many, many wonderful buildings in there, too. And all of Fitchburg has a lot of these great buildings.
Absolutely.
Anywhere you drive, you can see evidence of the great heritage the city has. Our brochure also has, while we're on it, as little write-ups on each of these 6 different districts that are recognized in this particular downtown historic areas, but there's certainly a lot of other historic places in the city. So
Have we kept an eye on whether those brochures are still available in the locations like at City Hall and at the Art Museum? Or do we have like somebody that lets us know when they run out?
not
We don't have
necessarily.
anybody
I know Andy
who lets
helps
us know.
distribute some of those.
What?
What?
We don't have anybody who
Need to
lets
check
us
with
know when they
Liz's
run out.
office if they have any more. I haven't.
Yeah, they do have a bunch
If
of
you go
They have more.
upstairs, they have a big box. It's on the floor up there on the 2nd floor in City Hall, and they're not folded. You have to fold them.
3rd floor.
3rd floor.
Yes. Yeah, just go up and check community development. If
Community development.
anybody needs some, I just left some out in the front lobby here for people attending the meetings here. This is probably a good place where a lot of public comes through. And
Yeah, when I,
Hey, Keith? Oh.
yes,
go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
The application for the Academy Street
yes.
National Register Historic District, was that available to the public to see?
I got your email
Yeah,
on that.
yes,
Because it's in its final stages of being approved. I've written Newview just to ask their permission to get a copy of the latest. They're the ones that commissioned the work on that. So Mark said he would send a copy to me, and I'll make sure you'll be able to get a copy, or everybody on the commission. So.
Is that something that goes through Massachusetts Historical Commission and then the Parks Department?
Yes. The process for approving National Register Historic Districts at first needs to be done usually by a professional preservationist, because its document is about 100 pages long with very well-researched information about the various buildings and locations and backgrounds on the buildings. And it goes to the State Historical Commission first. They review it, ask for edits and so forth. It has quite often a lot of back and forth going on it. And when it's final approval by the state, then it's forwarded to the National Park Service in Washington. And the Academy Street Educational District was, earlier this month, was approved by Mass Historical, and it's in the process of being sent to the Washington now for national approval. And I believe that process is pretty straightforward, because Massachusetts does a pretty thorough job on reviewing the documentation. So it will become official, and for developers like Newview that are working on several of those buildings, using financing and with tax credit financing on to help finance that multi-million-dollar project that they have, which comes in handy for large projects like that. And they will rely on getting that final approval of National Register designation. And because they are doing preservation to meet the standards of National Park Service for those 3 buildings that they're working on. The goal is that they could then be able to help with their financing with that then too. So. Okay, we've taken a lot of time on that, probably, but good time.
Keith, you mentioned the George Wallace Library,
Yes.
and I wonder if you have any more information about the work that's being done on it?
I haven't heard anything since December myself.
No, I haven't either, except all of the back portions have been demolished. It's ready.
And not just the back portions, but a lot of the front portions
Oh,
as well.
A lot of the brick in between the windows,
Yeah.
I didn't expect that much to be removed, but
Obviously, you can see that they've already started in front.
Yeah. They did present that they were going to remove on the corner of,
Yeah.
is that Putnam?
it's, what's the name of that street? It begins with an N, as in Nancy.
Oh, Newton Place, Newton Place, thank you. Newton Place corner, they'd proposed making that more public viewable from Main Street, and there is a large reading room up on the second floor there, and another reading room on the first floor, just as you come in the new entrance, which is very similar to the old entrance. Those originally had brick paneling and just kind of side windows on it. And some of the other areas of the library had some areas that had kind of almost full windows between the columns. And kind of switching out, making that more of an open area there so it's more visible to see that the library is open. The lights will be on. You'll be able, people sitting in the reading room will have views to Monument Park and up and down Main Street, et cetera. So I think that's the brick walls we approved they could take down. They are replacing all of the window frames, which were originally wooden frames, with new metal pieces, so all of the glass has been removed in the rest of those areas. So that's still in process, I think, and they're be interesting to, we'll try to get another update from the library of how the progress is going, or from their building committee. So,
Do you remember if they were keeping the staircases? Because I remember they're out of code, I thought.
they are keeping the staircases.
Even though they're out of code, they can do that?
In certain cases you can, and they might be doing some minor modifications to.
I mean, I'm glad they're keeping them. I want them to keep them.
Very sculptural. Each tread is a little structural element itself in the design of the era, the late 1960s, and it's excellent workmanship and a great example of that period of architecture. When I was there in December, there was lots of demolition, but all those stairs were there, and they were well protected.
Okay.
As including all the railings that are in front of the windows and around the balcony area. I think they have they're iron or steel railings with, I think, a kind of wood top on them. They don't meet the code for. I think they're probably at 36 inches high, and the new code requires those railings to be at 42 inches high. So they're keeping the existing railing, and they're putting a more invisible railing behind it that goes up to the required code piece. And I think they're probably doing some things like that with the stairs also to modify, making sure the handrails and guardrails are at the right height, but still keeping the original design to them. So elements like that they are preserving, and they intend to. Other questions on the library? Or
What are we up to, number 7?
I think so. Project to document Main Street, number 6, Main Street building, historic buildings, historic districts, tax credit and things. That's still kind of in progress. I came up with some mock-ups for this, and he's helping with some photographs and pictures on this. And hopefully we'll have some updates on that next meeting. Number 7, update on Monument Park repairs, fencing, and proposed. How are we doing? We're a little bit after time here. We'll try to wrap this up shortly.
You just talked to about getting to see the molds.
Yes, we have talked to the city's purchasing agent about kind of process of getting estimates on what the cost would be for, one, creating the bidding documents for the cast iron fencing repair, and then moving on to a second phase of getting the actual money for the construction, or the bidding and actual finding the money to actually do the repair work itself. So purchasing has helped us come up with some schemes on this. We understand that there is an existing mold for that you mentioned for particularly the balusters, the fancy four-sided sculpted cast iron balusters. If we have the mold, that would save a lot if it's in good condition, that a new foundry could use this to create new replacement balusters. And we're looking to see the condition of that. So we're still waiting to hear back from DPW and Parks being able to take a look at it. I'd like to
If I can't go with you, take some pictures of it so I can
Yeah.
see.
When we have a chance to go visit it, I'll let everybody know when that is, and hopefully in the near future. We'll document it, take some dimensions, and photograph it. Probably, I don't know if it has insides and outsides to it. I'm intrigued to see the precision that they do to make molds like this, and if they don't have to make a new mold, that would be great and save money for the city on it. So, and it's great that they've saved it so far.
Trees.
So we will know, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks where that goes.
Tree planting.
Yes, and the second piece of Monument Park is tree planting. Parks and Recreation and the city has been, is being the recipient of the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation is doing tree planting, particularly in old mill cities. There's a designation for it. It escapes my mind at the moment. But cities like Pittsfield and Fitchburg,
Gateway,
Worcester.
gateway cities, is that what you're thinking?
What did you say?
Gateway?
Gateway cities. I think that is the definition. That sounds right. Anyhow, there's some funding for planting in these various cities that DCR is providing, and some of it's already happened, and they're proposing adding back some of the missing trees in Monument Park. And I've sent everybody on the commission some diagrams of those particular pieces, and I would like to, again, get another kind of subcommittee to help. We said we would help the Parks Division with selection of trees. They're kind of asking us to give some input. So I would like to, not one of us unitarily kind of make these decisions. but
If it's trees, I volunteer.
Okay, trees, so I have a volunteer of Don. Anybody else like to be on the tree selection?
I can.
Okay,
I don't really have a knowledge of trees, though.
Mary, okay.
Keith, I don't really have a knowledge of what trees are better than others or anything like that.
You're right next door.
But I live right next to it, so I can go over and have an opinion.
Yeah, so there are several trees that are available through this particular program that could go there. I think we need to consider the trees' durability, what they would look like against the existing landscaping, the trees that are there, looking at some of the historic images of how the park has evolved in its planting over the various years, and making sure that that it remains dedicated to the soldiers and sailors that served in the Civil War is more than just a park. It's a monument to, or a dedication to these soldiers. So the monument is really the important piece, so as we get together. So I have Don, Mary, maybe Charles?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
called Greening the Gateways.
Greening the Gateway,
Greening the Gateways.
the Gateway Cities.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what the project is called.
Okay,
I'm looking at the email.
okay, thank you. Someone's online here, that's good.
Yeah, it's a particularly interesting problem from the point of view of historical methodology, because we have seen pictures, historical pictures of Monument Park with no trees,
Yes.
and others, different years, different decades with trees. And then the question is, well, which decade is more historical?
Yeah,
And the answer is none of them is more historical. So I think the idea of, we can discuss this on the committee, is to, as Keith pointed out, select trees that will be durable and will be within the parameters of all of the decades. So have trees. Don't go back to 1900 where there were no trees.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't have to be identical to the 1920s or whenever.
There's also times where they had big trees around the park.
Right.
Not in the park, but they were around it.
That's right.
Where the sidewalks are now.
Yeah.
They'd have big old elm trees.
so when we adjourn, if these two different committees, we kind of getting together, if you guys want to talk a little bit, when you want to meet, I think these are both right now types of things we want to do, that we want to have these kind of decisions made before the next meeting for sure.
Well, they're looking to plant trees in April, between April and June.
Yeah, so
And
we
they need
some
3
lead
weeks to
time.
order them. So to be honest with you, they're doing this now.
Exactly, so they're waiting for us, and,
Yeah, like this is something that needs to be decided like in the next few weeks, I think.
yeah, so that would be good, so.
So who are you working with at the Parks Department with that?
That's James Bennett.
James?
Yep, he's great on that, so.
Yeah.
We looked at number 8, number 9, progress on creation of additional historic districts. I have no updates on that at present, and I think maybe we can focus on that at some future meetings.
Yeah, I'm interested, when Brian is official, I'm interested to hear his views on, especially Prospect Hill Historic District. Prospect Hill. Yeah.
Yep. And new business is that Brian Gallagher is going to be going before City Council for appointment to the commission on April 1st. So thanks, Brian, for volunteering to join us. So thank you. Great. We look forward to your input as we move forward here. So great, great. Lastly, next meeting is April 24th, 5 p.m. Here in the City Council chamber.
I was thinking when we're talking about those walks, and you know, if we don't do one big one, like if you do like separate ones, the Prospect Hill, I know it's on a hill, but that whole area back by Applewild and all the, where Don lives and probably where you live, that would be a nice one where you go by and talk about who built each house and the history of each,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
Bond Street.
We could spend a
Arlington
day
Street.
on Prospect Hill.
Yeah.
It's,
And then you guys can all open up your houses for coffee. We can end it.
yeah. Would you put a pool in the backyard too while you're at it? And so we could. That's great.
You know.
And just a kind of a side note, I was thinking of Prospect Hill along with many other areas in it, but Prospect Hill is I'm kind of liking it to Boston's Beacon Hill, or in Worcester, there's the Massachusetts Avenue area with grand old houses, a similar type of era And Prospect Hill has a overabundance of some wonderful residential buildings in that area.
And it's a wonderful example, again, of what we were talking about, of using historical resources to help with redevelopment, because the Prospect Hill itself is kind of divided between the people who owned the mills and then lower down the people who worked in the mills, but
It's a good
the
cross-section.
affordable housing was built for the people who worked in the mills.
Yeah. Anyhow, for another day, and thank you all for being here. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
I think